Track 3 then now, bit of UB40, Red Red Wine. It was originally a Neil Diamond song back in 1967. He wrote it. I know some people didn't know that. And it was released in August 1983. It had 3 weeks at number one, but I didn't realise that it didn't do very well in America until 5 years later. It reached number one in 1988, but it took a while to get over the Atlantic.
I wasn't aware of that fact. I read an interesting fact that apparently when the band recorded it, because they first of all recorded it for the Labour of Love album, which was volume one of a series of, I think, 3 covers albums that UB40 have so far done in their career. And they saw the writer credited on the 7-inch single that they looked at, End Diamond, but they were only aware of one version of this song, and it wasn't by Neil Diamond. It was by a Jamaican artist called Tony Tribe. So they thought it was somebody of Jamaican origin who'd written the song. The Tony Tribe version was the first UK hit for Trojan Records, which of course nowadays is well known and been synonymous with being a massive reggae label. Apparently Neil Diamond has said that UB40's version of the song is his favourite, and so he performs it in the style of UB40 rather than in the style of his original whenever he's performing it live nowadays.
So I'm here at Bridgewater Hall. I've got my brother Phil here, and so we're on to track 3, UB40, Red Red Wine. What do you think of this song?
I think this one made Neil Diamond's look really, really bad. I'll be honest with you. He brought it to the masses in a new generation. So
and he likes this version.
He likes the. It's the best version they've got.
Yeah.
Best one they've got. Everyone knows it. Instant single on.
What are your other UB40 songs that you like? I mean, obviously they did
Kingston Town.
Oh, you are?
Hands down, Kingston Town.
What about There's a Rat in the Kitchen?
But it's not that. I think
I'll Be Your Baby Tonight with Robert Palmer.
They're better known for covers of other people's songs.
Yeah.
They did a good version. Same as they did a good version of Elvis Can't Fall in Love With You.
Good song. Do you know what film was that from for 10 points? Sliver, he's got it. Here's Red Red Wine. Track 4 then now, Only for Love, Limahl. It was his debut solo single after he was fired by his bandmates of Kajagoogoo. It was released in November 1983. It only reached number 16. I say only, I mean, it was still a top 20 hit. But I suppose after the first 3 tracks, it's not as successful. But Only for Love, what do you think?
Well, I have to say, listening to the now albums, as we discussed at the start of the show, I've got all the new albums from 1 to 100. When you listen to some of the more recent, the older albums, that's some of the tracks don't age well. For me, this is a track that is more of its time and hasn't aged as well as others. It's got a very much new romantic sort of sound from the early 80s. But yeah, didn't cut it for me listening to it more recently. As you said, top 20 single. First of only 2 UK top 20 singles that Limahl had. Do you know how he got into Kajagoogoo?
No. How did he get into Kajagoogoo?
Well, apparently he was working as a waiter, not in a cocktail bar. And one of the people that he met was Nick Rhodes, the keyboard player from Duran Duran. So Nick Rhodes co-produced the first Kajagoogoo single, which we will be hearing a little later in the show.
We will.
Do you know where the name Limahl comes from?
No. Where does the surname come from?
Right. So Limahl's real name is Chris Hamill. If you take the surname and you've got an anagram, you have Limahl.
Oh, that is good pub quiz trivia. I like that.
As you said, he only lasted with Kajagoogoo for 6 months before they had a differing of opinion, and Limahl went on to a very brief solo career.
Track 5 then, Temptation. We're going on to a Sheffield band, of course, now. Heaven 17. Released in April 1983. It reached number 2 in the UK charts. I keep meaning to listen to the album, The Luxury Gap. The song, apparently, Temptation, featured a 60-piece orchestra, and they performed it on the 1000th episode of Top of the Pops.
Not a lot of people know that.
No. But it's a great song, and it just builds up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's Heaven 17's massive track. It's their massive single. If you were to name a Heaven 17 single on Popmaster on the 3 and 10, this would be the first one you go to. I probably would struggle slightly after that, course, they had a bit of a resurgence about 10 years later when it was remixed and at the start of the 90s. But yeah, I used to live in Sheffield when I was a student nurse training there, so this was always played on the student nights and all around the city. Yeah, one thing I was going to say was that Heaven 17, as well as having they had a minor career, but not a hugely successful career, they initially started out as members of Human League. So Martin Ware and Ian Craig Marsh, along with Phil Oakey with Human League, then they had a differing of opinion. Ware and Craig Marsh with Oakey went their separate ways. Phil Oakey kept the name Human League. They took the name Heaven 17, and they had a few hits of themselves, but they also supported other artists in their career. Again, I'm going to come back to this a little later in the show because it's something linked to another artist featured on this album.
Ooh. Next one, track 6, Casey and the Sunshine Band, Give It Up, released in July 1983, and it was number 1 for 3 weeks over here in the UK. In January 1981, Harry Wayne Casey, lead singer, survived a serious car accident, and he was left paralyzed for 6 months. He had to learn to walk again, dance again, and play the piano again. So this was a big thing to come back after that. No, I mean, it's a great song anyway. It's a brilliant song. It still stands up.
I mean, you look at the career of Casey, as you said, number 1, it was the final big top 40 hit for the band, but they've had a career so far going back nearly 10 years. First UK big hit was That's the Way I Like It, and they turned out during the 70s loads of great songs, and this one's Give It Up. I can't think of the others off the top of my head, but yeah, loads of great records. So good to see a comeback after such tragic circumstances. The song has since been adopted in many sports, I discovered as I was
really
cricket. It's chanted by England fans. Football, fans of Spurs and Man United and Ajax chant it relating to different players. I mean, this goes back a little bit. So one of the Man United players, Nicky Butt, so from the 90s. Apparently this song was used for him. And also it was used by one of the darts players to march out to come out onto the hockey.
So it still lives on. Lives on.
Indeed.
Still at the Bridgewater Hall, and it's time to Give It Up, Casey and the Sunshine Band. Great song.
Absolutely amazing. Instantly recognisable from the get-go. Everyone dances to it. Disco classic, and us going back to when we were kids. Everyone gets up, everyone sings along. Nice one.
See, you're on about Worsley Pool, Swimming Club Pies. I remember the song. It was Spagna, Call Me. Terrible. But it is, like you said, just one of them songs still.
Instantly recognisable. Timeless. Everyone knows it. Everyone sings along. Everyone loves it. Great melody.
And they've done a few hits. Casey and the Sunshine Band.
He still tours.
He still tours.
He still tours.
He don't
look the same or sound the same, but he still tours.
He still tours. Track 7 then, so there's 2 tracks left on side 1. Malcolm McLaren, Double Dutch, released in July 1983, reached number 3 in the UK charts, and you might have heard it from the film The Wolf in Wall Street. But yeah, Malcolm McLaren, I don't really know much about, well, was he involved with the Sex Pistols? Am I right with that? Oh, probably not.
Well, in my script, I've not put that radio name in because I didn't feel it was appropriate for hospital radio. But yes, he was.
We'll leave that out. Yeah.
Malcolm
McLaren, what do you know about
of a well-known offensive punk band fronted by Johnny Rotten, of course. This was his second solo single. He released about 5 LPs in the 80s. This was the second top 10 hit of the year, reached number 3. I've got one of his albums from the late 80s, which is really good. It's an interesting style. This song is about the very rock and roll activity, and of course punk activity, of skipping. Double Dutch is the type of skipping where 2 long ropes are swung in opposite directions with 1 or more people jumping them simultaneously. Now, during the course of the song, you hear a constant refrain during the chorus of Ebony, which is repeatedly mentioned, and at the time, that was a New York double Dutch troupe.
That I remember on Top of the Pops when I watched the repeats from '83, and they had, I don't know if it was the Ebenettes in the studio, but they were doing, like you said, the skipping in the studio to the song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, apparently the video was filmed, and there was Malcolm McLaren and the Ebenettes in a gym in New York. But yeah, in the
Right.
studio. Imagine they were.
Ah.